Good morning. My name is Glenn Kantor, and I'm the founding and managing partner of the law firm of Kantor Kantor. For 30 years, we've been representing individuals with issues with employee benefits, including health, life, disability, and pension benefits, as well as privately obtained insurance benefits. I've been asked to speak to you today about um, the considerations for insurance and other benefits for someone with multiple system atrophy. Um, the topics I'm going to be going over today include health insurance, disability, life, pension, and long-term care benefits. And I only have about 20 to 30 minutes to talk, so I'm going to be doing this very superficially. And then I'll be answering questions, but I will be preparing a much more detailed uh, summary with questions and answers that you'll be able to look at hopefully on the Society's website. So, the first topic is health insurance. Obviously, health insurance is extraordinarily important for anybody who has MSA. If you have it through your work, there are issues about continuing your coverage. Some employers may just allow you to stay insured if you're disabled, others may not. Um, the answer to the question as to whether or not you're going to stay insured is going to be in your benefit plan. Someone who is diagnosed with MSA, the very first thing they should be doing from an insurance point of view is to be contacting their employer and asking to see copies of all of their benefit plans. If you need a letter, um, which exemplifies how to do that, I can provide it. I'd be happy to do so. I will provide you my contact info at the end of this talk. Uh, if you don't have employer provided coverage or your own health insurance coverage, you need to be looking to purchase coverage immediately through the ACA, which is also known as Obamacare. Unfortunately, and there are open enrollment times on Obamacare, and you can talk to an agent about how to accomplish that. If you can't afford it, there are government programs which will assist you. An issue that comes up frequently is Medicare. Uh, Unfortunately, unless you're 65 or over, Medicare will not kick in until you've been receiving Social Security disability benefits for 2 years. There is discussions ongoing about trying to advance that for individuals with certain conditions, such as MSA, but it has not yet occurred. Um, Now, um, once again, this was very superficial. There are many issues to be discussed. COBRA, for example, um, if somebody is disabled and they receive approval for Social Security benefits, their COBRA will stay in effect for 29 months. There's a magic number about 29 months, which is that there's a 5-month waiting period to get disability benefits, and there is a 24-month waiting period while you've been on disability to get Medicare. The 24 and the 5 is 29, which is why you can keep your COBRA benefits for 29 months until your Medicare kicks in. Um, Next, I'd like to talk briefly about disability insurance benefits. Obviously, many individuals with MSA, after the symptoms have progressed to a point where they receive a diagnosis, are going to be at a point where they cannot continue working and their income from their employer will stop. There are a number of potential options which you need to be exploring. The first is Social Security disability income. Unlike Social Security retirement, Social Security disability income is an insurance program that people who work pay into. And if they are disabled, they are entitled to receive typically somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 a month, and 50% of that amount if they have children under the age of 18. There are attorneys who specialize in this area of the law. I do not, but there are legion, and they'd be able to help you with the process. They do not charge a great deal of money and are paid out of any retroactive benefits that you are awarded. However, with a condition such as MSA, it's on a particular list. It's a compassionate list of particular illnesses which are flagged by the Social Security Administration, and they typically approve claims immediately. If were fortunate enough to have an individual disability policy, as soon as you get a diagnosis, you should contact your insurance agent, and he will guide you through the process of submitting a claim to your insurance company. Now, very few people have individual policies. If they have coverage, it's mostly through their employer or through the state. Many employers will provide short-term disability, and if you're diagnosed and have to stop working, once again, the place to go is your employer, who will assist you in the process. A short-term disability will typically start a week after you leave work and will last somewhere between 90 days to 6 months, sometimes as long as a year. Most short-term policies will coordinate with the state so that you get a percentage of what you were earning while working. There'll be a maximum between the short-term disability plan and any state benefits provided. After short-term, if your employer provides it, you would go to long-term disability. The elimination period is the period of time before they start paying, but as I said before, that's typically covered by a short-term plan or a state plan. Now, I frequently am asked to represent people whose claims have been denied. As I said, I've been doing this kind of work for 38 years. The first 8 years was a defense lawyer, and then for 30 years as an attorney representing individuals. I have never come across a case of MSA, which tells me that the insurance carriers understand its severity and complexity, and they do not deny claims. I've handled claims for things like ALS and cancer, where somebody has not progressed enough to be considered disabled, at least from the insurance point of view, but because of the severity of MSA, I don't think carriers deny the claims. But I'm not going to say it's an impossibility. There are a couple things you need to be aware of. One is that if a claim is denied, because employee benefits are typically governed by federal law, there are procedures that have to be followed. One is that you can't go off to a lawyer and immediately file a lawsuit. Before you can file a lawsuit, you have to ask the employer to reconsider the denial. If you don't ask that in writing, and I'm sorry, I said the employer, what I meant was you have to ask the employer's insurance company, unless it's a plan that's self-funded by a very large employer. But you have to ask whoever is denying the claim to reconsider it. Only then can you file a lawsuit, and only the information that is included in the request for reconsideration will be considered by a court in the event that there is a court proceeding. Again, I will say I doubt it would ever happen, but it is very, very important to follow the rules. If you were to get a denial, my recommendation would be to find an attorney who specializes in handling what are called ERISA disability claims. ERISA stands for the Employee Retirement Income Security Act and governs 99% of all employee benefit plans. It does not cover plans that are provided by governments or church entities. But if you have a private employer and they provide you with benefits, the federal law ERISA is going to govern your claim, and you have to follow the ERISA procedures. They're complicated, so if you have any issue, you do want to contact an ERISA lawyer. And I would, again, stress, not a lawyer who says he might do some ERISA. Find a lawyer who does primarily ERISA as the mainstay of his or her practice. Besides disability, potentially the next issue is life insurance. Obviously, if you have life insurance, it is imperative that you take all necessary steps to make sure that life insurance doesn't lapse. In many states, there's a requirement that insurance companies allow you to name another person to receive billing notices to make sure lapses don't occur. Some states do, some states don't. But in any event, you want to make sure to take all steps to make sure that your premiums for your life insurance are paid and paid well in advance. Other issues with life insurance. Many policies, both employer provided and those you may have purchased on your own, have what are called accelerated death benefits. These are provisions that say if you've got a condition which is more likely than not to result in death within 12 months, that the insurance company will accept an application and pay you as much as half of the benefits while you are still alive. Now, typically those policies do not result in the relinquishment of 100% of the benefit. They will pay the remaining 50% after your death. So if you were to need the funds because you didn't have disability insurance or you had need for cash and your policy has an accelerated death benefit, you should talk to an experienced insurance attorney or your agent about how to apply for those benefits. Other provisions in life insurance policies, either obtained privately or through your employer, deal with waiver of premium provisions. Many policies, particularly those provided by employers, have what are called LWOP, which stands for Life Waiver of Premium. If you are disabled such that you cannot work, many insurance companies will continue your life insurance in force during the course of your disability. There are different provisions defining disability for receiving income benefits and for receiving a waiver of premium, and an experienced attorney can explain those to you. If you don't have a life waiver of premium, sometimes they don't apply if you're over the age of 60. They stop being effective. The insurance company is obligated by the laws of all 50 states to offer what's called a group conversion policy. Unfortunately, the offer of that group conversion policy from what you have in life insurance provided by your employer will be extraordinarily expensive. The premium might be as much as 10 or 20 times the group premium that you paid through your employer, or that your employer may have paid for you. But if your condition is such that your life expectancy is reduced enough, it might be worth it to consider that group conversion policy, even though it is very expensive. If you can't afford it, there are people who might be willing to invest and share the proceeds with your heirs. A last thing is that there are insurance companies that will issue you what are called guarantee issue coverages. They will ask you no medical questions. So even though you have a very serious condition such as MSA that unfortunately is likely to lead to an early death, they will still issue you coverage, but will only pay if you live for more than 2 years after the policy is issued. If you don't, all they do is return the premium. But realistically, if you can get one of these policies, there is absolutely no reason not to. Life insurance issues can be very complicated, and if you do have a diagnosis, I would encourage anyone to reach out to either their employer's HR, which sometimes can be knowledgeable, sometimes may not be, an insurance agent, but most likely the best person is an attorney who has experience in this area. Most will give, or I should say most, many, including my office, will always give a free consultation to somebody who has questions about how to deal with these things. Uh, it's particularly advantageous to ask early before a problem occurs. Now, the next issue I want to talk about are pension benefits. If you have a pension, there are different ways to set them up, and there are different laws governing the different states. Typically, a pension benefit, especially in a community property state, belongs not only to the pensioner, but if they have a spouse, half of it belongs to their spouse if they, accumulated the benefit during the course of the marriage. The payment of the pension can be set up that the largest amount is paid, but only for the life of the pensioner. A smaller amount can be paid if it's for a longer period, which goes for either the life of the pensioner or their spouse. This is something you want to talk to, once again, your investment planner or your employer about setting up the pension benefit so that it benefits your family. It's an unfortunate situation, but you don't want to set it up so that it pays for the life of the person who has MSA, and all pension benefits end potentially months after you take a pension. You could have a spouse who's going to live for 40 more years, and you want to make sure that that spouse is protected. Lastly, I've got a slide for long-term care benefits. In this day and age, a small percentage of Americans have purchased long-term care benefits. These benefits are different than disability or life. They are intended to provide care in your home for a nurse, or care in a residential facility, or even a skilled nursing facility if an individual is no longer able to provide for their own activities of daily living. Activities of daily living are eating, which means bringing a fork to your mouth, not preparing food, using the bathroom, showering, ambulating, meaning the ability to walk around your home, or transferring, getting up out of a chair, up out of bed, and the last one is dressing oneself. If you have a policy and the symptoms of MSA render you unable to perform typically two or more, sometimes it's three, but two or more of these activities, the insurance will typically pay. Of course, a claim has to be submitted. And once again, as with the other coverages, it's imperative that you don't let these coverages lapse. Also, with a long-term care benefit, if someone is impacted cognitively, typically it's early Alzheimer's or dementia, even though they can still dress and bathe, but they're a danger to themselves or others, the insurance will pay. As I've handled these kind of cases for over 20 years, and as I'll say again, I have never seen a case involving MSA, which tells me that the long-term care insurance companies recognize its seriousness. Well, I've taken about 20 minutes to give you an overview of the things you need to be thinking about if you receive a diagnosis of MSA. I'm fully expecting that people have very individualized questions, which I'm happy to answer. If I can't answer them today, I will provide my contact information, and if somebody has questions, I'll do my best to respond. And as I said earlier, I will prepare a detailed question and answer memorandum that may answer a lot of your questions. And if it doesn't, once again, I'm happy to speak to anybody individually. Thank you for listening to me, and now I'm happy to take any questions you have.